All right, so we're starting.
Hello, ladies.
Hi. All right, let me share my screen.
I might have to.
It says my screen is disabled. My screen sharing is disabled for me. Alice, you gotta go, babe. Oh. Okay.
Did I give it to you?
Let me see. No, it still says host disabled screen sharing.
This is Pam.
You.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have a date of birth?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Should I try again?
Do you know what she wants? Wendy, do you know what she wants?
How's that? You're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Everybody can hear me now?
There we go.
All right. Good. Everybody good? Yes.
Yeah. We
Okay,
can
I'm
see
gonna
your
start.
screen. Looks great.
Awesome. Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Martha Rabello, and I'm going to start our keynote, and then Mandy will take over. Thank you so much for having us. We're happy New Jersey has finally caught up with the rest of the country after all these years. A little bit about myself. I moved to New Jersey in 2005 from São Paulo, Brazil. I was originally born in California, but I grew up in Brazil. And after graduating, my strongest experience was after graduating with a graphic design degree, which is something that only exists in Brazil. My biggest experience was doing in-house graphic and web things for Big Pharma. And in 2005, it was dire job-wise in São Paulo, Brazil. And I decided that I should move back to the United States where I was from. And at the time, all the big pharmaceuticals were in New Jersey. It's not the case anymore. So off to the Northeast I came to experience snow and the never-ending debate if it's Taylor ham or pork roll, which if you guys don't get that joke, I can explain later. It's like a local lunch meat. So ironically, once I moved here, I ended up working in advertising and I never went back to Big Pharma, but now I love the Garden State and this is where I am. So let's go back to 2007. Great. 2007, the year that brought us Gossip Girl, the first iPhone, and very few states with cottage food laws. This awesome lady named Grace DeStefano realized that New Jersey had no cottage food law. And direct quote, because I spoke to her before this presentation, she decided to do something about it and not just complain. So she reached out to her senator, they wrote a bill, and she had 2 letter writing campaigns, she did phone banking, and much like we experienced later on in 2015, a lot of the legislators had no idea it was even illegal to do such a thing. In 2009, a few years later, I was already burning out from ad agencies. Of course, it's like you see in the movies. We could drink at work. We had Nerf gun battles, all those things, cliches. However, it's long hours and I was getting done. So I realized that I should pursue one of my other lifelong passions, which was baking. In pastry school, I learned that New Jersey had no cottage food law. And if you wanted to do something, you'd have to rent your own commercial kitchen. Something that sounds super easy on paper. But still, I joined the Facebook page that at the time was run by Grace, and I was keeping an eye out for any developments. Now we're down to 2015, up to 2015, the year we talked about if that dress was blue or gold, and all of these states already had cottage food laws. By the end of 2015, though, the same bill had died in committee 3 times already. It ended up in the hands of the same senator who was dead set on not pushing it through. This is our bad guy of the story. And the concerns were about food safety and unfair competition with brick and mortar stores. Of course, apparently this man was unaware that a sheet cake cost $10 at Costco. At this point, Grace, who had been doing this by herself for 7 years, was done. And understandably so, because when she was about to testify, the senator just walked out and didn't want to hear anybody testify on behalf of the bill. And that was enough for her. She posted on the Facebook page that she was done and she was gonna delete the page in a few days. And she was trying to find somebody to take over. Without knowing at all what I was getting into, I reached out in private and said, I'd like to continue. I didn't think it was fair that New Jersey didn't have a cottage food law. I didn't think it was okay to deny the people of New Jersey a perfectly safe income stream. And, you know, if you ask my mom, she'll be the first one to tell you that nobody really can tell me what I can't and can't do or can do. So with that spirit, I reached out to Grace, and she had told me that 2 other people had reached out to her as well. And she was going to get us together to start talking about this. So I met up with Liz and Jessica, who was with us for a little bit. Not that she's gone, she just left the effort. And together we strategized to grow the Facebook page, banking on the experience that I had with advertising and graphic design. I wanted to grow the Facebook page and our social media to gain more traction. And wait, I'm blanking out. And for that, we started creating these graphics that were, sorry, come on. We started creating these graphics that were always tongue in cheek, and we wanted people to forward them on their Facebook and spread awareness for this. There was a little movement with that, and hold on. Haha. Jessica was the person that joined us as well, and she was a paralegal, so she rewrote a bill for us and the senator that had these things that were bothering the people that were holding it up as a time. So we added an income cap of 50K, and we also added the requisite that people have a food handler's license to cover the food safety issue and also the unfair competition thing, which I don't think is, should be really a concern, because we all know that you're not going to ever produce in a residential kitchen what you produce in a commercial kitchen. Even, this is not even on the paper, but I used to work on a tiny little kitchen in Brooklyn, and we used to churn out so many things just because the commercial setup is so different from the domestic setup. So as a group now, we were able to cover, 3 of us at the time, as a group, we were able to cover so much more because we all had day jobs. At the time I was renting a commercial kitchen, and this commercial kitchen made me realize that it's not as easy as it sounds to rent a commercial kitchen. It took me 2 years to find a commercial kitchen that worked for me. My son, who is now in kindergarten, was a little 4-month-old at the time, and he used to sleep in the carrier while I baked. Once he became mobile and could not sit there anymore and watch me bake, if I added the cost of childcare to it, I was no longer making a profit. And I decided to close my cookie shop, which will open again, and just focus on activism and my kids, of course. At the time, we were lucky enough to have a baker within the group that was a high-profile PR person. She was able to get an interview for us that ran nationwide. This interview was picked up all over, including a tabloid, which gave me this gem, which I have framed in my house, where now I have the bucket list item of being on a tabloid. It said illegal cakes. My son's daycare, other moms were asking me what kind of cakes I was selling. And I think the funniest part is that those are clearly cookies. So, but sure, they have to sensationalize everything. This article that ran nationwide brought us a lot more opportunities for local news. So we ran other stories as well. The kitchen I used to rent was always super gracious, and they let me record in there, which is where I learned how embarrassing it is to shoot B-roll, which is those filler takes that you see a news story while the narrator is telling the story going on. So I can talk to a camera, I can bake for a camera, but don't make me pretend to look for something in a kitchen. It is so cringy, but that's it. But the good thing is they also have this amazing light that makes your face and skin look amazing. But so if you guys ever have to do an interview, be warned, they might ask you to pretend to do things for B-roll. Around this time, we read an article on Forbes about Wisconsin having a lawsuit filed to overturn their ban, and the attorneys behind it that were the Institute for Justice. I suggested that we should reach out to them and see if they could help us as well. When we reached out, they answered almost immediately. They knew food freedom is one of their big things. So they were already aware of New Jersey, and we spoke to them. And since they helped with grassroots, since we were already very organized on the internet front, they suggested that they would host a town hall to gather more bakers. And at this town hall, they would teach us how to grassroots organize, give us media training for other people, and just also give us an opportunity to meet everybody. Oh no. Well, I am missing this slide. However, these are the ladies that I met at this town hall. Some of these were in the original group, but Mandy, who was speaking, I met there. And at this town hall, we were separated into different groups. Some people got media training and were given pointers how to publish op-eds in their local paper and how to get the news out and how to speak to media. Some people were separated into a group to help us grassroots organize and how to reach out to people and do this, which is where I met Mandy. She came to our table. I just wanted help with publishing the website. And some people got separated into a group to try to get more of a connection and a community within us bakers. Our Facebook group, a private group that we have, was a suggestion from the bakers that were there because they wanted a place for us to all network. Also at this time, Heather Rusinko wanted to participate in grassroots and media, and her story was very compelling, and they decided to make her the face of our change.org petition. That's Heather, she's so cute, that had up to 10,000. We got almost 10,000 signatures, 7,000 online. The rest was all on paper. People would print out pages and collect signatures. We also had papers at the baking supply stores and chocolate shops. And so in September of 2016, this was in April, we got all these in September, we went to the State House to take over to deliver this. But before that, once we had a lot more people in the group, we got to cover way more ground. Everybody had, we were able to collect everybody's experience and put it into action. So our co-founders are 5. There we met Jen, who is a very talented baker and is extremely knowledgeable of the business side of things. She has been running her own bakery and making amazing cakes and cookies for a long time. Heather, who has an amazing inspirational story and is just the heart of everything. And Mandy, who on my notes preparing for this, I found out I wrote, that Mandy chick is kicking butt. And I am so happy that I met these ladies, and we all became the co-founders of this association. And not only do we work great together, we are friends, and we talk every day. Yes. And so Mandy also launched a coalition campaign to reach out to chambers of commerce and business to gain support. Heather was then featured on a nationwide broadcast, and that brought a lot more traction to our group. We tabled at the Sussex County Fair, which is a very big deal here in New Jersey, collecting signatures and spreading our message. We had these little prompts for people to take selfies. That was our hashtag in 2016. It's crazy. But after that, we took over the state Senate, and we had tables full of cookies and a lot of volunteers. We had a rally in front of the Senate and the Capitol, I guess. And those are all the people that came up. And if you guys ever need to meet with your legislator, bring cookies. Everybody comes to the table, and then you can get your message across. Oh. And that is my part of the speech. Thank you so much. I hope it made sense. We will be here for questions after. And now I will turn it over to Mandy.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? All right, so it's my turn, and I'm going to get going. I am the aforementioned Mandy. I will pick up the narrative from here. I'm a Sussex County native, and I love a good soapbox. I'm sure my fellow Gen Xers will remember the big dolphin-free tuna campaigns of the 80s and the 90s, because that's the first campaign I can remember jumping on board with. I ate Starkist tuna every day for lunch for weeks, religiously saving all the labels and mailing them in for my exclusive thank you gift, this poster, leaping greatly through the blue waves, complete with the Starkist tuna logo at the bottom. But man, I was really proud to be, part of something bigger than myself. So fast forward to 2016, and I was all in on the home baking cause. A little bit about me. I bake family recipes, my great-grandmother's and my grandmother's soda bread, spice cakes, cookie recipes that have been passed down for generations. Really simple, hearty, old world, everyday sort of treats. And I know that every single one of us is here today because at some point someone said, hey, your cakes, your cookies, your brownies are really good. You should sell them. The problem was here in New Jersey, we couldn't. And I really wanted to be a part of changing that. I will admit, at first, I was a bit naive. I had faith in the system, and I think that we all did. Here's the one thing, though. No one told us initially that you could do everything right and still not reach your goal. We had to learn that for ourselves the really hard way. In late 2016, I did take a spot on the leadership team among the women who have become my sisters in arms. I would say if nothing else was ever gained from this experience, their love and support would forever be more than enough. So here's a quick little map of the New Jersey legislative path. It's not that complicated. Once a bill is authored and introduced, it has to pass through a committee and the floor of each house, both the Senate and the Assembly, and then it goes to the governor's desk to be signed. If the governor doesn't like it, he can send it back, and they sort of start the process all over again. So as Martha noted, our big obstacle in the state legislature was one man, Senator Joseph Vitale. He's the chairman of the State Senate Health and Human Services Committee. He doesn't like us very much. So this is where we continued to get stuck in this committee action. We've always taken the public high road regarding Senator Vitale. I'll continue to do that now, but you can all fill in the blanks about how we felt about his actions behind the scenes. So beginning with the very first Baker's bill, he successfully blocked the legislation from being heard in his committee, which is where this circle is, where we were stuck. That's a critical step in becoming law. And as the committee chair, it was perfectly within his right to do that based on the New Jersey Legislative Code. But by the end of 2016, the more he pushed back, the more press we got, which was great for us. It didn't paint him in a very good light, but still he refused to sit down with us and have a real conversation. Then the previously unattainable happened. In the early spring of 2017, Vitale offered us that coveted face-to-face meeting. We were really riding high from the good press and really valuable connections that we'd made the year before. So there we are. A couple of weeks before we met with Senator Vitale, we sat down with the Lieutenant Governor's representatives again, along with members of then Governor Chris Christie's legal counsel. We had just partnered with Icing Smiles at Valentine's Day to provide treats to critically ill children and their families. That was an effort that really bolstered our spirits and our PR. New Jersey bakers are, above all else, people who use baked goods as a labor of love. And if our goods were safe enough for children with compromised immune systems, we felt clearly they were safe enough to be consumed by the general public. So we really believed, or we hoped, that we could walk into Vitale's office and present our case and walk out with his word to stop obstructing the legislative process. So there we are, April 4th, 2017, getting ready to go slay the lion in his den. So young, so full of hope. I'll spare you the gruesome details, but let's say that's not what happened. Have you ever been in a situation so rude and disrespectful that it felt like you were watching a really poorly written dark comedy? You felt your insides want to burst from pent-up frustration, but they're just have to sit there and cram it down because you're determined not to stoop to someone else's level. And have you ever huddled with your colleagues in a public parking lot in the chilly early dusk and rage cried until there was nothing left to do to go back to your respective corners of the state? Because that's how that meeting went. The bill did not move in 2017, but we did. We were done taking no for an answer. In many ways, that meeting with Senator Vitale was a turning point for us. It opened our eyes to the real possibility that pursuing legislation was an exercise in futility. We were keeping a close watch on our counterparts in Wisconsin, who, with the help of the Institute for Justice, were embroiled in their lawsuit against the state to gain their right to bake from home. As we continued to see our bill wither away in the legislature, an idea really began to take hold. So if the Wisconsin bakers could sue their state, could we do the same? It was time to admit it. You can hear this picture. It was absolutely time for us to pivot. When we began our relationship with IJ in 2016, they pledged their support to us for whatever we needed to wage this battle, which was awesome. They'd already blessed us with an incredible activism manager. We'll never be able to thank Brooke Fallon enough for what she did for us. And of course, our media training, and they were about to bless us again, and this time with a legal team. As soon as the Wisconsin home bakers won their suit and subsequent appeal in October of 2017, we knew what we had to do. So we spent a few weeks putting things in order, and the New Jersey Home Bakers Association was officially born on December 6, 2017. And we filed our lawsuit the very next day. There we are on the steps of the State Superior Courthouse in Elizabeth, New Jersey. It was really cold and windy that day. We used about a roll and a half of duct tape getting that tablecloth and those signs to stay put. But man, that media training came in super handy. We talked to all the major networks that morning. We spent the next few weeks in a constant conversation between us, back and forth, deciding who was speaking to which station. Does anybody have time to call that reporter? You have to remember, in the midst of all this, we were and we are working mothers, all of us. So sometimes finding 5 quiet minutes to talk to the media was a really big task. But with hundreds and thousands, eventually, thanks to Martha's efforts with the social media, absolutely incredible. People were looking for us to be their voice, and because of that, we really had to find ours. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when it happened, but after we filed the lawsuit, there was no more holding back. Our evidence about the safety of home baked goods really spoke for itself. The legal team was doing their job. And for us, there was no more running back and forth to the state house, and we'd always leave there feeling angry and defeated that, it was very frustrating. We started to tune out the hate and the keyboard warrior abuse, which, there always is. And we really started to be able to put that to the back of our minds. And we had the time and the space and the confidence in ourselves to really focus on the message while the wheels of justice turned slowly. And when I say slowly, I mean really, really slowly. In April of 2018, the state brought a motion before the court to dismiss the lawsuit, and the Judge Hurd, denied the state's motion, meaning we were going to be moving forward. After that, the state did everything they could to drag out the process. They asked for extension after extension in discovery. Meanwhile, we had submitted our experts report, our personal depositions, other supporting arguments, and then we waited and we waited and we waited some more. There was a lot of dread. We were scared it was possible the judicial system would fail us in much the same way the legislative system had. It took a long time. So, okay, it wasn't 84 years, but it sure as hell felt like it. With no results and no court date by 2019, we really began to mull over a return to lobbying. We thought it couldn't hurt to be working simultaneously on both fronts, but we felt like we were starting from scratch because there wasn't a viable bill to back in 2019, and we knew Vitaly was just waiting in the wings to crush us again. But the thing is, the spark of confidence we'd gotten from filing the lawsuit had really grown into like a raging bonfire. I mean, we were angry, we were frustrated, and we were working really hard. So every meeting, every print article, every radio or television appearance, and by the way, Martha's so right about the B-roll. Heather and I once burned an entire batch of cookies while these people were trying to tape us opening and closing an oven. It was amazing. All of that added fuel to the flames, and we knew we really had it in us to fight in the legislature again if we needed to. So we went back to work setting up appointments with legislatures, local leaders, anyone really with the connections and the power to make things happen for us. Somewhere along the lines, we really learned to play politics, and it was opening doors for us. So these are our three principles: food safety, freedom of choice, economic development. They're our core values. They are our rallying cry, and we never wavered from this message. We gathered shared stories from bakers all over the state, military members and spouses who supplemented their income at other posts, only to arrive in New Jersey to find themselves unable to continue baking, single parents, retirees, differently abled folks for whom renting a standard commercial kitchen was nearly an impossible option. Bakers from across New Jersey's incredible array of ethnicities who sought to serve their communities with a taste of home, even farmers that wanted to create value-added products. Allergen-free home bakers is a big one, because they know how difficult it would be to truly find safe products for their families. And we knew that every one of these bakers deserved the right to show off their talents and their goods. We knew that consumers deserved more options, and that producers would protect the food safety and the downright sanctity of their items. A big thing is we knew it was utterly ridiculous to be able to sell or donate baked goods for charity, but not for profit. The same bakers in the same kitchens with the same ingredients. And so we knew that that was always one of our big points. We know that every small business is a boon to the local economy because people spend where they live, and we know that every cent helps. So using these principles really as our armor, we marched on. We had often frantic late night and early morning strategy sessions, legal team meetings, trial preparation, endless emails and phone calls with legislative offices, updating our social media followers, giving more interviews. We pumped out these ever evolving information packets. We shared a lot of laughs and a lot of tears. We got angry and sad and frustrated. And then we picked each other up and we divvied up the work and kept moving because none of us were willing to give up the fight. Looking back, it seems like a blur, but I know that every ounce of energy we poured into the cause had a purpose. In January of 2020, two key things happened. We had a summary judgment in court, and our previous Senate sponsor, Senator Kip Bateman, put the legislature back on the table at the State House in the form of Bill S-73. The judge declined to make a ruling the day of the hearing, and the court began scheduling us for a trial. And then Senator Vitale refused to hear the bill in his committee. Shocking, I know. And then in March of 2020, as everyone knows, the world shut down. We could never have imagined, caught up in the throes of a global pandemic, what was about to happen next, and it still feels a bit surreal. But in April of 2020, the state offered us an olive branch, the opportunity to settle the whole matter out of court with an administrative rule change. Surely we felt the Department of Health had bigger things to worry about with the COVID crisis, but who were we to turn down their offer? That would have been idiocy in the highest form, and we're not in the business of that. Let me tell you, we didn't spend the last several years becoming accidental experts on the ins and out of politics, diplomacy, advocacy, media relations, food safety science, only to reject the best chance that we had been offered. As with all things governmental, there was a process and there was red tape. But along with that, there was hope, like real tangible hope that our efforts were finally going to pay off. The proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. The State Department of Health crafted a rule change proposal that was very much in line with the regulations we sought through legislation for so many years. It had the same producer and consumer protections surrounding things like labeling, on-demand inspections, a pretty broadly permissible non-TCS food list, and the cost for obtaining the required certifications and the permit fees are really reasonable. It is $100 for a permit that lasts for 2 years. So essentially $50 a year on top of your food handler management training and water testing and other assorted costs, but considerably lower than renting or building a commercial kitchen. To say we were pleased would be a really vast understatement. And now we were fighting on a third front. The administrative system had joined the battle along with the judicial and the legislative factions. But the light at the end of the tunnel, as it turned out, was thankfully not a train. The rule change proposal was opened up to a 60-day public comment period. That's how any administrative rule change is approached in New Jersey. And that rule change, that public comment period was to end on June 19th, 2020. Anyone with an opinion for or against our cause could exercise the right to send their thoughts to the Department of Health. So we saturated our Bakers Association and our personal social media feeds with the information that our supporters needed to share their comments. It was really exciting. And since the world had gone mad, it was really nice to have something to look forward to. So you'd think that was the end of our story. We get our cottage food regulations and everyone goes home happy. But there's one person in the whole state, and there are 9 million people in New Jersey, by the way, who couldn't let us get away that easy. See, in our state codes, legislative action trumps administrative action. So I will give you one guess as to who decided it was time to pass a home baker's bill. The week before the public comment period ended for the rule change proposal, Senator Vitale had a huge change of heart and decided he would hear Bill S-73 in his committee. Wonderful, right? In a word, no. Vitale gutted the bill. He removed many of permissible foods, including chocolate, of all things. He added mandatory inspections. He made advertising nearly impossible by striking out the clause allowing internet presence. And he also struck out special occasion items, which to us was just absolutely hilarious to a certain point, because, I mean, you could say, don't tell me that cake you ordered is for a birthday, because then it becomes illegal. It just seemed utterly ridiculous. So yeah, the bill was nowhere near the legislation that we had eagerly backed in the past, and it was restrictive to the point where very few people would be able to obtain a permit. So we had to do the unimaginable. In the middle of asking our supporters to submit their comments on the rule change proposal, we now also had to ask people to oppose home baking legislation. In a nightmare scenario, the bill passed out of Vitale's committee back to the Senate floor. We felt as gutted as the bill itself. If there's one predictable thing about state government, though, it's that it can sometimes be wildly unpredictable. In the elections that had occurred during the years of our lobbying efforts, we lost our original assembly sponsors and we gained a new one, Assemblyman Andrew Zwicker, who, as it just so happens, is a scientist by trade. Not just any scientist, more specifically, he's an Ivy League PhD physicist. So we met with him in a bit of a panic after the Senate committee passage of S73. And the very first thing he said to us was that he knew and he trusted that the food safety science was sound. He assured us that he would do what he could to hold the bill back in assembly until the Department of Health could make the rule change proposal final. And Zwicker was true to his word. While the bill did have to go through assembly committee, Vitale's version of the bill never saw the light of day on the assembly floor, although it came close once. The Assemblyman's office and our IJ activism manager really jumped through hoops and had it pulled off of the floor at the last minute. When I say it was a heart attack kind of day, I'm not even kidding. I paced a hole in my kitchen floor waiting for word that the bill had been struck from the agenda. So, and it was, so crisis averted. So now we just had to wait out the administrative process, and honestly, no one knew how long that would take. The Department of Health was obligated to read and respond to every single one of the hundreds of comments they received during the public review period, and they had received nearly 800. So here we are in 2020. We were headed out of 2020 and into 2021 as the only state without cottage food laws. The cheese stands alone, as they say, or more accurately, the illegal cakes and cookies. But hey, there were 9 Fast and Furious movies to keep us occupied while we waited to be able to bake. So months passed, committees met. The Public Health Council first recommended and then revoked their recommendation to send the regulations to the Office of Administrative Law. Thankfully, thankfully that revocation did not go through. We poured over the rules. We put together pages and pages of FAQs for our members and our supporters. And then finally, it was done. October 4th, 2021 marked the publication of the rule change, allowing producers to apply for permits to sell non-TCS cottage foods. We did it. We did it. Finally, after all the years of saying it, 2021 was our year. You cannot, no one can imagine the tears we cried that day. Since over 300 cottage food operator permits have already been issued. Oh, Clancy's joining. And bakers are starting to make their dreams into reality. Like all new rules, it's not perfect, but we are working on it. There's some question about which frostings and fillings are non-TCS and which aren't. So we need to maintain a dialogue with the Department of Health to develop a list of acceptable recipes. There was a big flap over honey, which is a story for a whole other time, but that has been thankfully resolved. Our biggest hurdle right now is that some municipalities are pushing back against the regulations and saying that cottage food businesses aren't allowed in their town. We suspect this is a communication breakdown on the part of the state and the towns and the bakers themselves. But we have 565 separate municipalities in New Jersey. So it's going to take a while to shake out those bugs and get everybody on the same page. But, you know, we'll get there. We're already working on that. So in the meantime, our legal team is busy drafting dismissal papers for the lawsuit. And the way they're drafting it is so they'll continue to protect us in case the Department of Health decides to restrict production in the future. And the state Senate president who had defended Vitale's actions for so many years was actually voted out this past November in a very bizarre election by a no-name who spent very little on his campaign. And so that state Senate president was ousted. That was quite a surprise. And the legislature has re-amended S73 to be in line with the already published legislation or regulations so that it can be passed to codify the rules. So in the end, our three-pronged attack, legislative, judicial, and administrative, came together in one harmonious finish. Yes, we were the last state to create cottage food regulations. It took a Herculean nonpartisan effort to get them. We have to thank the Institute for Justice, for our advocates and our legal team, our Senate and Assembly sponsors over the years, and all the people in and out of government who supported us, with a special shout out to AFP Erica and my buddy Lou at District 24 Legislative Office. Baked goods have the power to bring people together in every circumstance, and this effort is really a living extension of that. We also have to thank the Department of Health, their legal and advisory teams, and their Commissioner Judith Bertucelli for resolving the regulations without the need to go to trial. In all these years, the rest of life kept growing too. We grew our families, we changed careers, celebrated successes, personal successes, we earned private losses, but we never lost sight of our collective goal. We wanted every home baker in New Jersey to have a real opportunity to create a business from their craft, and that's what we've done. People from all walks of life now, service families, parents, retirees, adaptive kitchen users, farmers, city dwellers, ethnic bakers, everyone in between, now has the chance to be an entrepreneur, to earn more money to support their families, and to spread joy and love through their cottage goods. And we really couldn't be prouder of having accomplished that. And so that might leave you wondering, where does the New Jersey Home Bakers Association go from here? While the lobbying portion of our mission is complete, the educational and the advocacy mission will never end. We will continue to support our members as they seek out their cottage food permits. We're going to work with the Department of Health to ensure that home bakers have the tools that they need to create fabulous products within the regulations. And of course, inform the public about non-TCS food safety and the many benefits of cottage food laws. And maybe, just maybe, we'll even have some time now to bake a few cookies of our own. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ladies. Listening to you guys, it sounds like you had a few more hoops to pass than we did, but it was a very similar story. And I agree with you, Mandy. The best thing that's come out of lobbying for cottage foods has been the amazing people that I've met along the journey. Do we have any questions that anybody has for Martha and Mandy? Patrice, did you have a question? Martha, Mandy, this is our Deputy Commissioner Patrice Bailey of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and he works with us.
Yes.
You're muted, Patrice. There you go. Can you hear us?
Here's a question in the meantime while he's trying to unmute. It says from Allison Schmidt, and of course then it went away. Do they intend to add other kinds of foods like canned goods, like canning? For Martha or Mandy, do you know if they plan on that? Or is
The permissible food list as is at the moment does include jams and jellies. So it does actually include some canned items. Because at the Home Bakers Association, that's not really our purview. We've always focused specifically on non-TCS baked goods. It would really be up to like the home canners, the Master Canner Society, those types of things, if they wanted to pursue adding more canned goods like high acid foods like tomatoes, anything. But for now, it does allow some water bath canned items like jams and jellies, preserves, that type of thing. So we are not going to be pursuing that. But if there are other groups that would like to expand upon that, I think we've sort of really laid a roadmap for them as far as pursuing a conversation with the Department of Health. And the other thing too is that the application process for the cottage food operator permit does allow you to request foods that are not on this on the specific permissible foods list, and so people can put those types of things on their applications and open up a personal dialogue with the Department of Health when they're applying for their permits.
Great. One more thing. I'm going to reach out to you afterwards. Actually, Martha and I already talked about starting at least a quarterly cottage food social hour through our association to try to connect cottage food producers throughout the United States, just to learn what's going on in their states and best practices and different things like that. But you were talking about different municipalities, cities such as in your area that are restricting cottage foods. I do have a contact of somebody who is working on this right now on a national effort and actually getting information, and they're starting to lobby to reverse that because they feel that it impedes people's right to purchase locally sourced foods. So I know he works with the IJ some too, so offline, I will make sure I get that information to you guys.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
So Deputy Commissioner Bailey can't seem to make his mic work, but he left a message in the chat. He said he's very glad to be here, even though he couldn't unmute himself. And Mandy, I really enjoyed your presentation and the success you have had in New Jersey.
Yes.
Oh, well,
And unfortunately, Martha, he wasn't able to log on previously. We've had a few people with technical difficulties with Zoom this morning where they've had to reset their accounts. So when I have been looking as if I'm not paying attention, I'm just trying to get more people on and work out kinks. And I apologize.
Are you guys allowed to sell? Where exactly are you allowed to sell your products from? At like we can sell at any public events, we can sell at the farmers market. Are you allowed to do that?
Oh, yes. You let Martha, who should unmute Martha too, so she can answer some of these
I didn't
questions.
realize that she was muted.
But yes, we are allowed to do any direct to consumer sales. So farm stands, farmers markets, excuse me, we can, obviously somebody can pick up goods or you can deliver goods to their homes or wedding venues, you know, but it's all direct to consumer. No retail sales or wholesale. So we can't, you know, I can't take my cookies down to the corner market and have them sell them for me. It all has to be, you know, direct to consumer sales. But we did get through the advertising glitch, which was they wanted to restrict advertising online, et cetera, et cetera. But we are allowed to do that. So you can have a website, social media presence, you can take orders and accept payment online, but anything, your transaction has to be completed. When the baked goods pass hands, it has to be from person to person.
Yes, you cannot ship as well. Yeah.
There were a couple different ways you could keep that. You know, if you have the Verizon Visa card.
Oh, now you're muted.
Me?
No,
Jennifer.
Oh.
Jennifer.
Yeah, they are.
And you're still muted.
Right now, device dollars.
I'm muted. If somebody can, if everybody just mutes when they're not talking, that'd be great. Other than Martha and Mandy, that'd be great because we're getting a little bit of background noise. For those of you who are having difficulties unmuting themselves, you should not be having problems anymore. I think I fixed that. Here's a question from Donna. Can a consumer buy products as a gift for someone else? So if you have a customer that comes to you and purchases it, is there anything that keeps them from giving it away?
Oh, no. I mean, people buy birthday cakes for other people, you know, I mean, you wouldn't want to ruin the surprise by buying your own birthday cake. So yeah, no, once the transaction is complete, what that person does with the baked goods is their own business. But
I have one question for you, because when we were in the process of doing our updates to our law, where we the bills that became law this past time in the years past, we actually sent messages to every regulatory agency in the United States, with the exception of New Jersey, because at the time you didn't have a cottage food law. I am curious though, is there anything within the department that regulates you that is there anything in the state or department that is disallowing you guys from structuring your businesses such as an LLC or something like that?
I think Martha can take this one.
No, 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 you can be an LLC. You can be any structure that works for the person. There's nothing, there's no regulation on that part.
Yeah, so you're allowed to be registered as an LLC through the
Yes.
department and through
Yes.
the Secretary of State. That's great to know because now it's 49 of 50 states that allow LLCs to be registered as cottage food producers and with the Secretary of State. So that's great on the registration process. So thanks for that information.
Yeah, one of the things in New Jersey is New Jersey is much more corporate friendly than it is personal friendly in a way when it comes to taxes. Because as Martha stated very early in our presentation, there's a lot of big pharma here. There are a lot of other big corporations here. And so they, you know, when it comes to taxes, New Jersey is a very high cost of living state. It's much more beneficial to structure yourself as a corporate entity as opposed to a personal entity when it comes to protecting yourself and protecting your assets and paying your taxes here in New Jersey. And so we've been telling people to consult their accountant or to call the SBA and get some advice before structuring their businesses. But many of our bakers have already started the LLC process.
Someone wants to know, can a consumer buy products as a gift for someone else?
Yes. Yeah, we just covered that a few minutes ago. Yeah, definitely. You just have to buy directly, but what you do with it after that is your choice.
Sounds about the same as this. So do you have an official website? Where do you have an official non-potentially hazardous foods list? Do you have things set up like that?
Yes, we do have a website which Martha maintains, and it's awesome. It is njhomebakers.org. You can find us on Facebook, New Jersey Home Bakers Association. And then on both of those places, we have links to the Department of Health site where you can find all the information you need, which is your application form, the regulations, the permissible foods list, the list of acceptable food handler management courses. You know, a lot of people opt for Serve Safe, but the state did approve, I think it's 6, Martha, right? Five different ones that they will accept. All that information. So you can find the links to that information on our website and on our Facebook page.
Yes, and also on the DOH, they have a list of the producers that already have permits. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's one of the things we haven't done yet. We want to put a directory on our website.
oh, that's on the DOH. That's on the DOH's side. They're putting that.
Oh, so you don't have it on your website?
No.
But it's right on the same page with all the information on the DOH website. And we think that's really cool because our bakers have been watching that page like obsessively since they started applying for their permits. And the permit process is actually not taking terribly long. When they had published the regulations on October 4th, and then the Department of Health had the application up by October 6th. And people were wondering if they would be able to get their permits in time to start baking for the winter holidays, et cetera. And some of them actually were. The initial permits, I think, took about 5 weeks to be processed. And now the process seems to be moving a little bit quicker. I mean, you have to remember it was new for everybody, for us, for the bakers, and for the Department of Health. And so now it seems to be taking between 3 and 4 weeks. And they are publishing a list for transparency, the same way you could go to any other website. You can go to the Department of Transportation and see lists of licensed truckers in the state. You can go to the Department of Health and see the list of licensed home bakers in the state, which is very cool.
That's really good. So another question to Donna Valente. Do we need to collect and pay New Jersey sales tax on goods sold?
Baked goods are not taxable in New Jersey. However, if you're adding anything to it, like if you sell it with cutlery, you have to pay sales tax. But that is something that I would tell Donna to make sure she figures that out with an accountant. But however, baked goods are non-taxable, just the baked goods.
Yeah, here, anything that has flour in it, you pretty much don't need a sales tax unless it has, even if you give it a napkin with it, you have to charge a sales.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you can sell somebody a piece of pie, but you can't give them a fork. So
Same. Yeah. A lot of similarities.
A lot of similarities. Well, it looks like our hour is up. Are there any other questions? I apologize. I've even had technical difficulties myself. My Zoom totally crashed on me. I had to reboot everything.
I would just like to say before we go that I saw a lot of thank yous and such in the chat, and thank you for having us. And you know, we're really appreciative of the opportunity to be here with you. You know, I think this conference that you have going on is awesome. I actually have to get back to like work, but I'm gonna pop in and out over the, you know, the rest of today and tomorrow and listen to some of the other sessions. But we really appreciative of the opportunity to be here, and thank you to everybody who left a nice comment in the chat. That's really heartwarming. So
Yes, me too. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us. It's really exciting. It's really exciting to see how much the cottage food industry has evolved over the years, and especially I think in the last 2 years, things have really progressed amazingly. And Jen and I are really excited. We really are hoping to be able to make it quarterly meetings with all the different association members throughout the United States, and that's going to be really something.
Yeah, it is really neat to see how everybody's grown so much in each individual state. And we're getting so many great comments here. Thank you, ladies, for all your hard work for your state. Great inspiration. It was really neat to hear, you know, you talked really about the relationships you've built. And it's not even just the relationships you've built with the people that you have gone through all of your struggles and your triumphs with. It's all the relationships that are even continuing to grow. And I know you talked, I think you said you had 300 registered or licensed cottage food producers in New Jersey right now. So to kind of give you a little bit of idea, in Minnesota, we started out with like 475-ish, plus or minus 25, you know what I mean, in 2015. And last year we had over 6,000 cottage food producers. Isn't that amazing?
that's wonderful.
And it's interesting because it has been such a great path to travel, because not only have we met all of these great people, we've learned to be more active and learned the ins and outs of activism. We've connected more with our government. We, you know, our goal is to work to promote food safety, like you said, and recognize cottage foods and move forward. Giving people the freedom of choice, because really you should have that choice. And, you know, economic development is huge, and it's empowering not only your local community, but it's empowering so many people that wouldn't be able to otherwise afford, like you said, that commercial kitchen, because it's so easy to take and write it down on paper and say, this is great, this is great, this is great. And then you look at the financial side of it and you start writing your business plan, and it's like, holy smokes, I'm going to lose me doing this. And then to see cottage foods in each state evolve and actually change revenue caps so that people can set aside money or earn a livable wage and not regulate a hobby. It isn't a hobby. There's definitely there's a great connection with locally sourced foods, and it's not even just promoting cottage foods, the products that we make, but it's our farmers and everybody. So I commend you guys. I'm so glad all 50 states have a cottage food law now. So yay.
We've had a lot of diversity into New Jersey, as small of a state as we are. I live up in the middle of nowhere. I live in the woods, and my property is big and wooded, and across the street are 17 acres of hayfield. Martha lives in a more urban area. Some of our other ladies live down more towards the shore. And so we just have this really vast diversity of needs to fill in New Jersey. We see a lot more ethnic baking in the urban communities where people are really trying there's a lot of immigrants and a lot of first generation families who are really trying to preserve and share a taste of home. Where I live, it's all about value added products for the agriculture. We have bigger farm stands, sure, that may have a commercial kitchen on property, but we have a lot of smaller farmers who are producing and weren't able to sell goods because they didn't have the room or the space or the funds to put a commercial kitchen on their property or to have associated with their farm stand. And so I think that we have such a diverse effort, just even within our core group. You know, I mean, Liz is in the Army and she's a Romanian immigrant. You know, I mean, that's like this crazy double whammy. Martha is a global citizen, has lived all over the world. I live 5 minutes from the hospital I was born in. So, you know, we just have this incredible diversity across the state, and we pack a lot of punch in a very tiny area. And so, you know, with 9 million people in New Jersey, if we could get 7,000 home baking businesses, that would just be this tremendous boon, I think, for an economy that often lags behind because New Jersey is a bit stubborn. You know, people they get entrenched and they don't want change. And we're so proud to have brought change, a huge change that we hope is going to be really beneficial to a really broad spectrum of residents. So,
yeah,
you know,
I hear you there. And I really do hope that for not only you guys, but for everybody, like you said, change is hard and it's really easy to get entrenched in a certain mindset. And hopefully that we can open more doors and opportunities, and at the same time, open everybody's mind to it so that, like you said, food safety, freedom of choice, that pretty much sums it up, and economic development will follow just from that. So yeah, fantastic.
Well, you mentioned that a lot that you're having some difficulties with different provinces because of the fact that they probably don't even know that the law passed yet. And even though our bill passed in 2015, we still have so many people who do not know that it happened and that a cottage food law even exists. And it's a big challenge getting that information out to the public.
it is. We feel like some of that impetus probably falls on the Department of Health to like, hey, send out a memo. But New Jersey has a really we have 565 municipalities in a very small area. And every town has their own town government, which consists of an odd member council. It's the system of local government in New Jersey is very, very municipal centric. Each municipality gets to decide what they're going to do. And so because this is brand new, a lot of these municipalities aren't realizing that these aren't commercial businesses, that these are actually cottage food enterprises. And the purpose of the regulation is to avoid having commercial businesses in residential zones. And so we think there's a bit of a disconnect there between the state and the municipalities, and the impetus is on us as the bakers ourselves to be able to talk to our towns and use proper terminology. And so what we've been trying to tell people, a really good analogy is that you're not opening an art gallery, you're opening an art studio. You're not going to be selling your goods. You're not going to have a cafe in your kitchen. I mean, these aren't even permissible. You're allowed to bake your goods and you're allowed to sell them directly to the consumer. So if you were an artist, you would be able to have a studio in your garage and nobody would say boo. So, you know, we're trying to open up that language and open up a dialogue. And I think that we really, you know, with the holidays, everything got a little skewed and this is all brand new. You know, we need to sit back down with the Department of Health and work that out and say, hey, you guys need to tell the towns this is okay.
Yes.
You know,
Or just hire us. Just hire us. Pay us to do their work.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Kelly and I have that conversation every once in a while. It's like, well, we don't exactly work, but you know,
Yeah.
everybody asks us, what's our goal for 2022? And we're like, to actually bake something.
Yes.
I haven't even thought about applying for my own permit yet.
Yes.
I totally get it. I started working on this bill over 11 years ago. I started working to get the cottage food bill passed and advanced, and it hasn't stopped. And I maybe bake about $20 to $150 worth of stuff a year. That's about it. It just takes too much time to do all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, Mandy knows, she's seen the pictures in my house. The person that ends up baking is my husband, the one that didn't go to pastry school. Because between this and 3 kids, he's like, I'll bake some. I'm like, yes, please, I will sit down.
Our big joke is when we're at the grocery store, my husband will say, oh, do I need to buy myself cookies? Or are you actually going to have time to bake me some cookies?
My daughter asked me that. Mommy, are you buying chocolate this week? Because I finished all the cookies you baked last week. Are you gonna have time to bake? I'm like, no, Mommy doesn't have time to bake this week. I'm sorry. Sorry. So here's my kid eating Oreos. Oh well.
We'll
Oh
just
well.
make sure our customers have those quality baked goods without all those preservatives in them. So, does anybody else have any questions? You should be able to unmute your mic. I did fix that. Yeah, it still says you should be able to. So feel free. You don't even have to put it in the chat. Open up your mic and ask them a question if you like. No?
All right, well, we are 15 minutes ahead of schedule.
Fantastic.
If anybody has any other questions, they can message us through our Facebook page, or they can
Yes.
email us. Was that contact@njhomebaker.org? Right?
Yes, contact@njhomebakers.org or Facebook message us. Mandy and I answer everything.
Fantastic. Awesome. It's been really fun getting to know you ladies, and we're just starting a relationship. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
I've
you.
been wanting to fly out to the East Coast again. I was a regional operations manager out there. So maybe I'll look you guys up. Oh, here's from April. Thank you for sharing your stories. So,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot this year and be in touch soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. And feel free to join any of our other sessions you would like. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Let's see, since we are 15 minutes ahead of time, would everybody like to introduce themselves and say where they're from? I can go across the board and I will call out your name, and you can tell us where you're from and what you're baking or canning or whatever it is that you do with your cottage food producers license or registration. Don't say license. I have Christy Hofschild. Is that how I pronounce it? I'm sorry if I butchered your names.
It's okay. I'm Christy Hofschulte. I am in Winona, Minnesota. And I just started doing this in September. So really new to it, still figuring stuff out, a little scared.
It's nice
But
to meet you.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, just let us know.
Okay.
Donna Valente.
Hello, I'm from Sussex County, New Jersey also, and I found out about the New Jersey bill by accident because I got the idea that I wanted to bake cookies and sell them at like Harley rallies and stuff because there's like a dearth of good food. So anyway, as I was researching it, I found out about the New Jersey law and it put me on the path, and I went through the training and submitted my license. So I'm just waiting. So I'm just like taking any opportunity I can to learn about anything I can. So thank you so much.
Oh, welcome. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Christine Myrie.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christine Myrie. I started with my business when we were able to back in 2015, Desserts First Bakery. I am in Chaska. Prior to that, I was in New York State, which is where I'm from, and I was doing oh gosh, 30 years ago, I was baking pies and cookies and breads for my parents' farm stand. Had no idea if there was cottage laws back then. I think New York is a newer state with cottage laws actually. But I do cookies and breads and pies and scones, all kinds of things. Right now I'm a little bit of a downturn because my mixer fell apart on Christmas Day when I was finishing up a batch of cookies for my son. So that will be going down to mix again, repair sometime this week, most likely, to see if they can fix it for me.
And Christine is also the treasurer of our Minnesota Cottage Food Producers Association.
Which if you see me looking around stuff, I'm actually trying to go through and create our treasurer's report for our meeting later today.
Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Hello, I'm Kristen Freeman and I live in Dundas, Minnesota. And I just started my cottage business at the end of November. So I'm really, really new at this. I grew up in Texas, we lived in Oklahoma, and now we're here. So I'm bringing a little bit of that flavor to Minnesota. So I'm very excited about this.
And you're getting used to the cold. You're in.
Yes, we've been here 14. We have survived 14 winters, so we're doing well.
Okay. That's good. Well,
thank
welcome.
you for letting me be here. It's nice to meet all of you too.
If you need anything, you just look us up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Janet Rissinger.
Hi, that's me. It's Reisinger, but that's okay.
Reisinger.
I have had my certification for a couple of years posted on my front window, but I haven't done anything. So I'm still learning. I recently retired, so now I have time, and I'm pondering the idea of starting. I really want to have all my friends give them their leftover rhubarb this spring so that I can just bake rhubarb pies. I'm in Roseville. I'm originally from Bram, which is the pie capital of Minnesota. So that's my heritage.
It's very nice to meet you, Janet. Thank you for being here. Mary Nesgoda.
Hello, I am from Le Sueur, Minnesota. Live outside of the city of Le Sueur. I'm originally from St. Paul. I've had my certification for several years, but just started doing farmers markets last year. I do primarily baking, desserts, cookies, a little bit of sourdough bread, and canning, jellies. We also have a small hobby farm, so we sold apples and a lot of apple products, apple butter, apple sauce last year. So wanting to expand a little more as I hopefully retire in the next couple of years.
Wonderful. It's very nice to meet you, Mary.
Thanks.
Roseanne Gregory.
Hello, I am from Longville, Minnesota. My market partner and I work the Walker's Farmers Market. We do jams and jellies, pickles, sauerkraut, and some scones and pies. We try to grow most of the things that we produce, so it gets to be a little bit challenging with Mother Nature.
That's awesome. Well, welcome, and it's nice to meet you.
How cold is it up there today?
I had 17 below when I got up this morning.
And that's without the wind chill, right?
That's without the wind chill.
Yeah, I was up there right before Christmas, or no, right after Christmas, visiting some family, and it was cold.
Thank you for being here, Roseanne. Randy Beck.
Hello, Randy Beck. I'm from Elk River, and I am a coffee roaster. Very new to this. Have redone my garage to be able to roast coffee, and I'm looking to do farmers markets.
That's really great.
Spring this summer. So thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you. I'm actually in Big Lake and I love coffee, so we need to talk. Mary Jo Boyle. Hi, Mary Jo.
Kelly. Excuse me. I'm Mary Jo Boyle. MJ Bakes a Lot, and I live in Shakopee. I actually had a special occasion cakes business back in the 1980s, early 1980s. Didn't know that it was illegal. And then had to quit that when our youngest daughter started getting into the frosting that was already on the cakes. So anyway, then after we retired, my husband and I moved to Florida, and I was a cottage food baker there. And that was fine. And then now in 2020, we moved back to Minnesota. So I registered last year, in 2020 rather, as a food producer, but then didn't actually start until October of this year. I'm so intimidated by you folks that are doing such fabulous cakes and cookies. My specialty is breads. I've been baking bread since I was 9 years old and learned in 4-H. And so I do sourdough, I do yeast breads. I love to do specialty breads like Mardi Gras cakes, king cakes, tea breads, those kinds of things. I made a lot of Stollen now this year for Christmas. So that's my deal, and I'm hoping to grow in 2022.
Little tidbit about Mary Jo. How did you get down to Florida when you moved?
We went by boat. We had a 50-foot trawler that was a really slow moving boat, and it took us 6 weeks to get from Stillwater to Dunedin, Florida, which is by Clearwater. And we lived on the boat for 2 years. And then Florida didn't want liveaboards, so the marinas were kicking people out. And so we sold the boat and bought a manufactured home. So, but now we're back in Minnesota permanently. So.
And we're so happy you're here. Another tidbit about Mary Jo is during our campaign last year to get our cottage food laws changed, he was a trooper and made so many calls for us. We were always able to just rely on Mary Jo, even at the last minute. I don't know how many times it's like, hey, I need you to do this. And she did it for us. So thank you, Mary Jo.
Happy to